You guys want to turn your packets on page 22, where we're at next. All right, if we're ready, I am going to start my book review by giving you a book review on a different book. I hope that's okay. So I brought this along with me. Anybody read this? Love and Respect. Raise them high, please. I want to see this. Okay. So you guys read this? Pretty cool. I'll tell you what.
Wife makes you read it.
You know what? Yeah. So my daughter gave us this book and said, "Mom and Dad, you guys need to read this." My 19-year-old, 20-year-old now, and you know, I don't read. I've read more wiring diagrams than books, like
Same.
by a long shot. But Audible's pretty nice. So it sat on the table, and you know, I'm the guy like, yeah, when are we gonna find time to read that? But in July, we drove from Cheyenne up to Eau Claire to move some of the kids up and stuff, and I was like, hey, let's get that on Audible, we'll listen to that. And it's, I don't know, maybe 12, 14 hour, and tell you what, this book was just amazing for me and my wife. We've been married 21 years, and I think this is the best our marriage has been since we were probably newlyweds. So, and I really think that, I don't think that if you guys, you know, think that you need a little something for your marriage, or you've got a very serious, you know, girlfriend, I think if you came and said, hey, I got this book, would you want to go through this? I don't think, the woman's not going to be the one that's like, yeah, nah, you know what, no. I think she'll be like, oh yeah, let's do this. So I think we got to take responsibility. Yep. Closer. Take that responsibility and say, hey, let's do this. And I don't think you'll have any problem with the other side of it. So anyway, thank you. Let's open with prayer. Dear Lord, bless our study and discussion. Lead us to realize the men that we could be, and lead us to be the men we need to be. In Jesus' name, amen. I got a small disclaimer real quick. I'm a little bit more of a happy crier than a sad crier, but so but I kind of had this thing where, you know, I maybe told a few of you this story that happened this summer. I was getting ready to come up on that trip up here, and I was just in the lumber yard, and this guy I'd never met before, and I heard him talking about, you know, what are you guys doing this weekend? I was thinking about coming up here and seeing my kids, and he asked me, he says, you know, you got a family? I started crying. You know, he's like, oh man, he's like, you thought maybe I lost a kid or something? He's like, I'm like, no, do not apologize. I just love my kids, and I was thinking about him, and you know, Dad was the same way. He was very emotional, but for good things. So, if I'm gonna be strong and courageous. So. All right, so I have decision 1, and it's about pornography and video games, so this should be fun. And those are not subjects that anybody, you know, has any problems with, I don't think so. And also I would like to do a really quick thing also. So my brother Philip, he's never been up here, he's like, hey, can I watch this? And I was like, well, yeah, you know, so I found out that it's going to be on YouTube, and I was like, well, now I'm going to probably have a problem trying to do this because I know you're going to be watching. But, so real quick, another show of hands. Who would like to see Phil Mayhew here next year? Yeah. Okay, we got about 60 guys. Philip? All right, so thank you. So maybe that'll give more pressure for getting him up here. So okay, so I want to let you guys know about, you know, we're talking pornography and video games. I want to let you know that I am just as guilty as anyone else. I'm not preaching up here to you guys. So, you know, we definitely need godly men now more than ever. I'd like to maybe use an example here of kind of something that maybe, you know, I was thinking about, and kind of made me realize, like, what the man I could be. So, I don't know if you guys know what happened in 1962. There was a little bit of a thing with the Wisconsin Synod and a little thing called the CLC. My dad was, Dad was 19, and what he did, he left his entire family. Everybody was Wisconsin, and he was one of the first guys to go to the CLC, and I always respected him for that, and he always was that man that I think that I wish I could be. So I was thinking about what me as a 19-year-old, and when I was 19, I had a daughter out of wedlock. I didn't really put a lot of effort into raising her. I don't know, I think I felt like I was bitter at her mom for, whatever, tricking me, and I don't know, I feel like I took it out on her, but you know what? My dad, he stepped in and assumed that responsibility, and he raised her, and you know what? He never took any of the credit. He was always like, Andrew is your dad, and so that makes me kind of say, hey, this is, the man I am, but this is the man I could be, and always respected him for that. So just on page 22 then, we're gonna jump right into this. I'm gonna kind of give you a little bit of what I got out of this. We've got these questions that you guys are gonna be doing on your own, and I've got Bible passages that are on the paper, so you don't have to look them up. So the first section, forsake, so it's decision 1 is our first decision of, there's going to be 6 decisions like they discussed, and it is forsake the fake and relish the real. And that the first section in here is the fake life and where it leads. So the devil, right there reading, the devil tricks us into sin by making us think it's real or what we want, but it is the opposite of what God intends for us. And of course, the devil's way leads us to hell. So I'm going to read this from Brant, and then this is going to be our question that you guys will work on a little bit later when you go in your groups. He comments in this section that sin is a swindle. There's this sweet taste at first, and then there's a turn, and we're left with bitterness and pain. And that's how sin works, always promising, initially exciting, a rush of freedom, and then you get this punch in the gut. So I think we can all pretty much, think of things that, it's everywhere. It's like, you think that, this is going to be amazing, and then you find out, well, yeah, it's not what you thought. Our Bible passage for that, I'd like to have somebody raise their hand who wants to read that for me. Proverbs 20:17.
Bread gained by deceit is sweet to a man, but afterward his mouth will be full of revel.
That was from Brant. Brant had that in this section. He's talking just about, if you steal somebody's bread, it's, wow, you didn't have to work for it. You got something to eat, but, it's, you took it from somebody else. So that's kind of just a brief overlay of that section. I'm really hoping all of you read this. It's like 5, 6 hours on Audible if you have even your card, but it's really, really good. We're going to go to the next part. That is not a girl, that is a piece of paper. And giving into our desire for fake things changes us. God puts lots of meaning into the world, and the devil wants to numb us to it with fake substitutes. The world needs men with a clearer vision of themselves that can resist the fake things in the world and engage reality. So we'll be working on, in your groups, explain this statement. Lust is the craving for salt in a man who is dying of thirst. And how does that relate to you? I just wrote down my answer here. I'll share it with you. Lusting for something or someone that is not yours is the last thing you need. That's kind of what that's what, if a guy is dying of thirst, the last thing he needs is salt. And so, who would want to read 1 John 2:16 for me? Pastor?
For all that is in the world, the desire of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world.
I think that sums it up pretty well. The desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life is not from the Father, it is from the world. This, section he was talking about, this guy, he's got this picture of a girl in a bikini. He's like, hey, what do you think of that? And he's like, that's not a girl, that's a piece of paper, So that's, that kind of explains what the name of the section is here. I have a few notes on a couple of these that I also wanted to share. But there's, we don't have a ton of time to go through this. We want a lot of that, like they said, a lot of that discussion for that discussion for you guys. But I thought this was a pretty good place to use our Joshua 1:9. And I've got it right here. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So I really thought that was, like Pastor Pfeiffer said, here in Joshua, Moses died, the Israelites were in the wilderness, and now, Moses, he couldn't go into the promised land. God said, you know what, you screwed up. Joshua is going to send you in. So Joshua's like, okay, Moses is dead. He was the leader. It's like, I'm up. And I've got to take charge and lead these people into the promised land. There was giants and, all these things that they're seeing here, but they got to get through that, and, these huge armies. So, here in the book is where Grant says, in this book, he says, I think you and I are up against circumstances, the likes of which men of previous generations have not faced. And he's talking about how, we've got smartphones and how, pornography is so easily accessed. So, he's saying, they probably didn't have this as much in previous generations. So we're kind of up against this new thing, just like Joshua was up against this new thing. He says, be strong and be courageous. I will be with you. So, also in this section, he talked about, so we're talking about how, kind of the world tricks us and tricks our minds and stuff. He talks about this guy that did a couple experiments. He did, had these birds that were hatching eggs. He says, I wonder what would happen if we made exaggerated fakes of their eggs and made them bigger and more colorful. Well, guess what happened? The birds sat on the fake eggs instead of the real eggs. And he did the same thing with a territorial fish, the stickleback, which I remember we'd get those in our minnow buckets sometimes, and they had these little spikes in the back of their backs. But they would actually, like their territorial fish, they would attack other fish that came into their territory. So this guy took made fake fish and they would have these red bellies, right? And he made them even brighter red. And the real fish attacked those fake fish with brighter colors even more than they would real fish. And the last thing he did, or another thing he did, was with butterflies. He made fake butterflies out of cardboard and made their colors more vivid and the lines more distinct. Thank you very much. And guess what? The male butterflies tried to mate with the cardboard butterflies when the real females were just like right there. So, that's the way of the world. It's, we just got to remember what is fake and what is real, and, you know, don't let the world trick us. So,
Andrew, you got a question?
Question.
yes, Pastor.
Well, and Andrew, when we think about this, you know, people think that pornography doesn't hurt a person, which is ludicrous. But the whole industry is based on taking advantage of individuals and using individuals, making them into objects of commerce. And when we talk about tending the garden, and in the next section, when we talk about the vulnerable people, this is something that we have to be so careful that Satan doesn't convince us, oh, yeah, it's just a picture. It doesn't hurt anybody when I'm sitting there with my phone. Well, the whole business is
Yep.
based on exploitation.
Pastor Libby, was that you, we're in the, I don't know where you went, in the car? Was that, you were saying that the pornography industry makes more than all four of the pro sports, together? So, yeah, it's a thing, so, and we, you know, and it's gonna continue to get worse. I mean, we haven't seen much that's gonna change. It just seems like it just, you know, and that's, everything gets more easy, more acceptable, more, able to get, so definitely need to be on guard and keep our guard up. Next page, page 32, we are, the next part is, here is some good news about pornography. No, really. And this is where he is talking a lot about, well, we'll read it first. What's in the book here. The reward circuitry in our brains is made for real life, real situations, and the real world. Just like God created Adam and Eve in the garden. You know, there was everything was real. There was the one thing that he couldn't touch, and of course, we know how that ended, but, you know, there was that temptation for them. So, continuing here, not constant dopamine hits from pornography. These constant dopamine hits can cause all sorts of issues with abnormal brain function. However, it can be reversed by abstaining from pornography. We need a bigger vision for our lives. We have to want something more than we want that momentary dopamine hit. The bigger vision is everything. To give up something, we have to love something else more. And if you have a pencil, and hopefully, please write this in, and maybe you guys can still touch on this in your sections too, but, you know, what, obviously, it's pretty obvious for us men that are married, you know, dating, you know, we know what that one thing is, you know, our family, our wives, our girlfriends, so we know what, but maybe just you can discuss that a little bit too. So the next little part here, which is gonna be the other question, is that Brent writes that if we give up our addiction, we must have a bigger vision for our lives. So I think this is a pretty cool question. Maybe if you want to share these with the Man Up guys, maybe you could put them somewhere. So a mission statement. So, you know, here, what if you were to write a mission statement for a man you want to be, the man you want to be, what would it look like? I did my own. I'll read it to you. I want to be a man who protects my family, is there for my family, and is there for my church, and to be there for my sin, like my dad was. Who would like to read Galatians 5 for me, please? Matt.
But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other, to keep you from doing the things you want to do.
Thank you, Matt. I think that's a really good Bible passage too. I mean, just perfect for this section. So without, spend a lot of time up here, we'll just continue on, please. So, the next part, A Tale of Two Men and Every Single Woman. We talked about this a little bit in our discussion, where there was, we talked about this video that was on YouTube, I think, that here's this guy scaling this 4-story building to save this kid that's 4 or 5 years old hanging from a balcony. And I guess his dad was nowhere in the picture, obviously, so kind of shows you, there's the man that he could be, and you always need to be aware of that. And we talked about how women want a man that will take charge and stand up for the rights of others also. So, we're on 4 then, or A Tale of Two Men, right? We just did the Bible passage. So there we go, we need to take action and not sit idly by. So my question is, name some things that you can take action in your life, locally, in your country, and in the world. My answer is very similar, I guess, to the last one, and is, provide for my family, my local church, provide for the needs of the synod, and give to foreign missions. So that's kind of, obviously, all very good causes and what we need to be doing. Who would like to read 1 John 3 for me? Zach.
Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and truth.
Again, I think very fitting. So our last one, next page, about video games. I think it's something that, again, it's very accessible. Obviously, they're made to be very addicting, and I think we just need to just be aware. Is somebody missing out because I'm, playing video games? So God has a purpose for us, and we need to be that man that God wants us to be. The question for this section would be, it's not a question, but it's discuss your response to this statement. Please don't waste your God-given desire for adventure and accomplishment by being a fake hero, fighting fake injustices in a fake world. That's Brant's words. And then the question, is this right, that this can be a problem, and if so, how? I'll give you my answer again. I said yes, that it's a problem, and I wrote that video games, phone games, they're made to be, well, I guess I already said it, they're made to be addicting, and that they're made to kind of suck you in. So the thing that kind of, for me in this, is like, well, what is my time worth? So, I've played plenty of video games. I know you guys probably know all the, if I start going back, we had the original Nintendo, I wish I still had that thing, because it's like worth some money. But, just going way back. We were almost, that was almost like, Nathaniel and I'd go downstairs and play Nintendo and play Mario, and it just, it seemed like it was always there. It just, obviously, just like everything else, everything keeps evolving, and I kind of remember that point was like, man, when is this going to actually look like real life? You think the technology would be there, but, so, they're made to suck you in, but, what is your time worth? Just think about if you think this is a problem, think about, okay, how many hours a week am I playing? How many hours a day? What else could I be doing? If you want to really let it sink in, maybe take out your hours times how much you get paid, and take that times a year and see what that is. But I know money's it's not everything, but it kind of gives you a little bit of perspective. So our last Bible passage, who would like to read Philippians 2:13? Thank you, Eric.
For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for his good pleasure.
Thank you. Another, I think, very fitting verse. Any real quick discussion or any questions or anything? Oh, David.
It just occurs to me though that, there's nothing new under the sun. I think you could substitute video game with anything that captivates your heart away from the works that God would have you do.
Absolutely.
If you spend we encourage our kids to read, but if you've got someone who all they do is spend their time reading fantasy novels, is it really that much different from a video game?
Yep, and I do apologize, I wanted to include that, but you know what, something else that I also wanted to include, it could be work, right? I mean, I don't even know how many hours I've been working lately, but luckily the kids aren't still around where I was like, well, yeah, I feel really bad for putting 65 hours a week in when the kids are, I could be spending time with the kids, but, yeah, I mean, it can be, and yeah, definitely just keep your mind open, and there are I think a lot of different things that could fall into this slot. And of course, I'm not saying no, do not play video games. Video games are the devil, or anything like that. But definitely, moderation, and just keep in mind.
I think, to yours, what you're, the examples you're given here and what just Dave mentioned is that, between the video games and pornography, those are the two big things that are sucking up the culture today, and so that's why that's such a big focus. So, to Dave's point, work can be that thing that consumes us, whether or not reading or playing an instrument, whatever it might be, that takes you away from other things, of being a keeper of the garden. It's just the fact that these are two big things that are really pointing front and center in our culture today because of how big the industries are.
Thank you, Pastor.
Whatever addiction it is that faces a person, and that'll vary for each one of us.
Yep, absolutely.
I think the tendency for us as Christians is to recognize the problem, be very sorry about the problem, repent of the problem, and then promise God we'll never do that again. And we end up doing it again. And I think one of the keys is to remember Psalm 51, verse 10 and 11, which is the offertory, create in me a clean heart. Every Sunday we sing it. If we're gonna overcome an addiction, it's not gonna be because I've got such a strong will that I will stop what I'm doing. Only God can help us do that. And I think it's so important to keep that in mind, because if I'm gonna depend on myself, I'm gonna fail. It's only when I depend upon God and His Spirit who empowers and enables that I'm going to be able to not only resist, but the heart will be changed and not want to succumb.
Yeah, and yeah, these are two addictions, addictions out of many. I mean, there's everything. You can insert addiction here. So, yeah, it's, we just definitely, keep our mind open and be aware. Any other thoughts, comments? All right, so turn to the next page, and we have verses 1 and 2 of 532.